dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. We're continuing our conversation with Liberty Nation's enterprise reporter, Joe Schaeffer. Thanks for sticking around, Joe. Now, we touched on this briefly in the last segment, but I kind of want to expand on it a bit because there's been, and for me, it's kind of flown under the radar. People have put out a couple of, oh, look at Donald Trump, isn't he being silly type articles in the left-leaning Fourth Estate discussing rechanging the names of Washington, D.C. sport teams. But it's not a silly story, and it's not a silly behavior to try and bring something back to what it was when it's been destroyed or changed due to what's the best way to say this, Joe? An ideology that seeks to pattern itself on top of everything and say that this is the dominant thought process, when it's not really the case. It's a very elitist bubble thought process that's being put over the top of things. How do you see it?
There's a lot of ways we can go on this one. I call it deliberate demoralization, first of all, because if you notice when they change these sports names, they always go to the lamest, most bland, dull name possible. That's not a coincidence. They take a beloved, cherished name. The Cleveland Indians, as Trump has said, was one of the original teams, going back to the 1890s, early 1900s. The Washington Redskins, an iconic NFL franchise, the Redskins Cowboys, a great rivalry, really captures your imagination. And so they want to dull your imagination. They want to pound you into blandness. Let's call them the Commanders, the lamest name we can come up with. Let's change the Indians to the Cleveland Guardians, which I guess is named after a bridge or something like that, icons on a bridge. Again, that appeals to nobody. Yeah. So that's not a coincidence. They want to dull it down. They want to demoralize you. But I also think they realize that this is a very potent weapon in their arsenal, the cultural arsenal. I just wrote an article. This is where you talk about globalism being interesting, fascinating, the psychological side of it. It's very important to them. So I wrote an article about populism is on the rise in Japan now because they're having the same problems that we're seeing in nation after nation in the West. Immigration, suffering economy, the feeling that a corrupt government only serves itself. Well, as what I wrote up in the article is that the populist party that is on the rise specifically pointed out that multinational corporations are feeding globalism.
Yeah.
And so I quoted the leading cracker company in Japan, the CEO who was born in India, he wants more immigration to Japan, came out and said we need to hire less Japanese, we need to hire more foreigners because we just can't have Japanese employees in our increasingly global corporation. So he is backing up everything the Populist Party said. And again, this is like the Doritos of Japan. I don't even know I don't know Japanese culture well enough if that's how popular they are. They are like a cultural icon in Japan. And so it's no mistake that they'll be part of this globalist cartel. You see it with Doritos is owned by Frito-Lay, which is owned by Pepsi. Pepsi was one of the worst woke companies of the past 10, 20 years. You see it with Guinness in Ireland, which is like the unofficial, official alcoholic beverage of Ireland, or one of them. They're owned by Diageo, a multinational corporation. For years have pushed globalism on Ireland and the world. The most woke stuff. They are one of the worst companies, and they own so many companies around the world. So this isn't a coincidence you see in Ireland, Japan, America. I'm sure you can point out examples in England of beloved cultural, sports, entertainment institutions repurposed for the globalist propaganda mantra.
It's even worse in the United Kingdom. We've had elected politicians in high positions say that they're offended by seeing the flag of England being flown, and it is demoralizing. You're right. There's this concerted effort to make people either turn away from symbols that used to matter, or denigrate the symbols that used to matter, because you can't build a new world order if the old world order's still standing, Joe. It just doesn't work. You gotta break down the foundations of it. Now let's dive a little deeper into this, what's happening in Japan, because it's actually quite fascinating. Now we have seen across Western countries, Europe, the United States, we have seen the rise of populists, and it's quite apparent. It's the growing political ideology of the day. I think it is a more populist bent towards politics, but we didn't expect to see that in somewhere like Japan. That from the outside looking in, it's always been, well, this is a very staid, a very conservative monoculture, as it were. But it's true, they are having the same globalist problems, and it's driven in part by multinational corporations that want to see the samification. I think I've just made up that word, but I love it. The samification of the world. So no matter where you go, you see the same shops, you can buy the same pair of shoes. And politicians who look to globalist enfranchisement as the way of the future. And I think it was Bertrand Russell who wrote that socialism is the only way forward, and the only way to do that is by having a one world government. And sure, a lot of people tried it after Bertrand Russell wrote about it, and that's what led to 100 million deaths. But and I don't blame Bertrand Russell, of course. But we see it with politicians. They want things more global. They're not interested in the national. Corporations are the same. They want things global. They're not interested in the national. What do the people want?
Yeah, I was interesting. I can't even pretend to be an expert on Japan at all. A lot of this was new to me, but as you said, I've been writing about globalism for so long. So you go into it was literally like going into a new country for me, already knowing the playbook that they roll out. So it's like, okay, what am I looking for here? An entrenched, increasingly unpopular government trying to hold on to power that they've had for decades that they feel slipping away. And what else am I looking for here? The powerful corporate interests who want to go global. And I found them both right away. I could have written a 10,000 word article on that. You guys don't like that when I write that much.
We prefer them a little shorter, just a little shorter.
I got to hit stop, but there's just so much material. So let's go with Japan. You talk about a uniparty, and I did not know this at all. The ruling construct in Japan has been in power for 65 out of the past 69 years. I mean, that's just insane. That's crazy. And so that came up with the idea that the Japanese were satisfied with their government. Well, they were satisfied when they had a booming economy for, decades after World War II, but that's been gone for a while now. And the Japanese people feel that the economy today, which is going global, which is thinking global, is not concerned with the Japanese people. And so they have the same problems that you see in America, in Europe, where prices are rising, the people can't afford it. They have a demographic crisis, the birth rate crisis, and they've got politicians, these same politicians that just want to hold on to power, saying, and the corporations saying, I've got the solution, more immigrants. Let's bring more people in. And this people of the country, Japan, Europe, America, are saying, what about us? Why don't we have a government that takes care of us? But the first thing they hear from their politicians and their big corporate leaders is, we need to bring in others. Others to feed, to keep feeding the monolith that they control, but that the people feel doesn't serve them at all. So why should they be invested in this monolith that they don't care about anymore? And so that's the tension. You're seeing it in nation after nation. It's really not a surprise that it would happen in Japan. I'm surprised people are so surprised, because the entire formula, all the ingredients that we've seen in Europe and America are absolutely there in Japan.
Yeah, it's a cut and paste form of globalism. Put the things, take it from here, you can apply it over there. And when you hear that there's a populist party on the rise, you can almost guarantee that, all right, let's look at the factors contributing to it. And as you say, it always seems to be the problem to all of the globalist issues is they say, we need more immigration. It's almost as though that's their driving force. Joe Schaeffer, I want to thank you for coming in, talking with us. Audience, please do go and check out Joe's writings over at libertynation.com. They are eye-opening. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Thank you.
And that's all we have time for on this week's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio American Network. I've been your host, Mark Angelides. I'd like to thank our guests for today, Graham J. Noble and Joe Schaeffer, and of course extend my thanks to you, the audience, for tuning in each and every week here on the Radio American Network. You are appreciated. Please do remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.